So, what's up people and welcome to the Mission 115 discussion of Spy Family. So Mission 115 came out about a week ago, and as always I will leave a link to this mission that's currently being shown on the publisher's official website, Manga Plus, for free to the North American audience. So if you're interested, yeah, we'll go take a look at it before they pull this mission back. Okay, so 115, if you recall 114 and 113, we went into a little bit of a side story and we covered the two major fanatics in the series, Fiona and Yuri. But we're back seriously into the main story again, or at least the side part of the main story. And we get a little bit of world building in 115. So 115 turns out to be a really good chapter. And this time we revolve around your world, right? And we finally get to see some stuff that I think many of us were very interested in learning about, which is all about Garden. And we get a lot of revelation with regards to this mission. And one of the questions somewhat gets answered, which was, how is Garden involved with Ostania, right? We see Yor and her assassination team, and they seem to be doing things that are separate from what Yuri and the secret police are doing. And of course, for Yuri and the secret police, they are moving with regards to the orders from the present government. But how does Garden fit in? Well, I guess we get a little bit of understanding with regards to this in this chapter, because the chapter begins with Director Wilker from the Ostanian Secret Police visiting Garden. And we see that there is some sort of somewhat professional familiarity between the shopkeeper at Garden and Director Wilker. And I guess they have some sort of a professional friendly relationship, but it's not really all that close. And what we find out in this chapter is that Garden is not particularly under the orders of the Ostanian government. And you see that because there is no direct subordinate ruling sort of relationship between these two. They seem to be somewhat independent, and the Ostanian government seems to be more a client to Garden than a ruling party. And so Director Wilker has come to meet with the shopkeeper because he has some possible jobs that the shopkeeper may be willing to take. And this is where you actually see that there is no strong ruling from the Ostanian government to Garden, because the shopkeeper has the ability to reject these orders. And what's interesting is the first one is basically the war, right? And what we find out is that, according to what Director Wilkers is saying, Ostania doesn't particularly seem to be interested in promoting a war as well. Although you don't get a complete confirmation of that, because what he says is that war seems to be coming back again just when we were able to get out of the previous one. So does that mean that Ostania wants to bring the country back to war? And he's just mentioning the timeline, or does he express a little bit of fatigue at finally getting out of the previous war, only to find that the country may be getting back into it again? And if it's the latter, then it seems to indicate that neither Westalis or Ostania wants to start a war again. And if that is the case, then who really does want to start the war? Now, we do know that Donovan Desmond is no longer the Prime Minister of Ostania. And so maybe after he stepped down, he created a rogue organization that is trying to start a war. And Ostania is not particularly in line with him. We don't know yet, but at least we're starting to find out that Ostania as a government seems to be at least not really pro-war, although we're not sure if they're all that much anti-war either. And what we find out is that Garden is not interested in taking this job of investigating what's going on with regards to the war, which seems to imply that for the moment there will not be a crossing of roads between Garden and the WISE organization. Or at least that's what we originally think when we see this part of the chapter. But as we go on, Director Wilker offers other jobs to Garden. One, to look into the troubles that's coming up in the potential soccer game that's going to be hosted by Ostania, which once again Garden rejects. But then we run into the final one where Director Wilker asks if they can look into the illegal poaching that's starting to occur in the forests of Ostania, going after a protected species called the Midoran elk. And what's interesting is, as trivial as this mission sounds, this is the one that Garden is quite interested in, or at least the shopkeeper is quite interested in. And that's when we start understanding which direction Garden is focused on. They're not loyal to the government of Ostania, but they are loyal to the country of Ostania. So, if there is anything that potentially might affect and cause harm to the country, including the nature of the country, then Garden will respond. And this is an interesting point that the shopkeeper makes. Because what this implies is that if Garden believes that the government of Ostania is starting to become a burden to the country of Ostania, then Garden will respond against the government. And the shopkeeper throughout this chapter makes it clear that if there is any pushback by the military of Ostania, then Garden will respond with force. Which of course creates a tense situation between Director Wilker and shopkeeper throughout this entire chapter. And the final part, where you really get that confirmation, when Director Wilker once again says if you could take the other jobs, the government will be very happy with regards to your actions. And that's when the shopkeeper turns around and says, we at Garden act as a service of the country, not the government. And the way he says it probably brings a chill down the director's back, because as he leaves, he asks the driver to quickly get out of this area because this place gives him the creeps. And so, of course, with a mission taken, there has to be agents that come out. And of course, since this is Spy Family, the agent you expect to see is Yor. And true enough, Yor is in Garden headquarters at this time. And she's happily looking at a ladybug that has landed on her finger. And right at that moment, a knife is thrown towards the ladybug. And Yor does this amazing thing where not only does she immediately move her fingers so that the knife doesn't kill the bug, but with her other fingers catches the knife simultaneously. And in the beginning, I thought that this was once again the shopkeeper testing Yor as he did in the previous encounters that we saw. But what we find out is that this time it's not the shopkeeper, but a new character that has come out called Hemlock. And what I find out with the commenters who read the chapter is that they're not really sure if Hemlock is a man or a woman. Probably because the long hair indicates that maybe it is a female character. But looking at the way this character is drawn, I would think that this is a male character. It does look a little bit like Fiona, so you can never tell. But this does look like one of those fashionable male characters, right? And Yor and her handler Matthew greets Hemlock. And Hemlock asks what they are doing here. And Matthew answers that he's here for his regular debriefing. Yor just says she's having fun on her lunch break, right? And it's at that point that we see another character come out called Gimpy. And I presume that these are all their code names, similar to Yor being the Thorn Princess. And Yor is like, oh, I didn't know you were here. And Gimpy says that he's been here all this time. Which indicates that looking at his stature and the way Yor answered and knowing how perceptive Yor is, most likely Gimpy is an infiltrator sort of skill, right? He has stealth and infiltration skills. And if he is an assassin, he looks like the type that would kill silently in the night. Whereas Hemlock looks like somebody who has extreme skills of assassination. And what's interesting is Hemlock asks, you haven't been doing a lot of work recently, have you, Thorn Princess? And before Yor can answer, Matthew says, we work under the command of the shopkeeper, and he hasn't been giving us that many orders recently. It's not like we are slacking off. And at that point, there's this kind of mental showdown between Yor and Hemlock, which seems to indicate that they're professional colleagues, but they aren't particularly friendly to each other. And you could see that they are on guard all the time, which seems to make sense because this is a group of assassins. You don't expect, even if they are in the same team, for an assassin to let their guard down when somebody of equal skill is nearby. And so they seem to be on guard. And it's only when the shopkeeper comes in that it kind of breaks the tension. But during this time, it's interesting because Yor, of course, prepares herself to bring out her weapons if necessary. But Hemlock continues to grip his cane. And whenever you see somebody who wields a cane, typically they're a sword master and they usually have a blade hidden in the cane. And I would think that that is the case in this case as well. So you have somebody who works with small weapons like Yor, a knifer sort of character, and you have a sword master and you may have an infiltrator, right? So this seems to indicate that there are different versatile styles of killing that each agent of Garden has. And so with all of the agents here, or all of the assassins here, the shopkeeper debriefs them on their next mission, which is this poaching of these elks. And he says that these poachings seem to be associated with some organized crime syndicates. And although they're not that skilled, they are numerous in personnel. And so there seems to be a large number of them going out to poach these elks. I'm not sure why. And I don't think Garden really cares what the reason is. They need to stop them. And so the shopkeeper starts handing out the orders, and he asks Yor and Matthew to be the vanguard of this mission and go out into the forest first. And they'll need backup and support in this mission, to which both Gimpy and Hemlock volunteer. And the shopkeeper assigns a support role to Hemlock. And with that done, we know who the personnel are, and Matthew, being the handler, says he'll start making the arrangements. And Yor is more worried than anybody, not because of the mission, but because she's afraid of creepy crawly bug things. I can imagine if she sees one, she'll probably kick the entire tree down when she sees an insect crawling around on it. But in any case, Hemlock answers in a very sarcastic manner that if she continues to be that afraid, he'll get rid of her first just to make the mission go smoothly. And you could see once again that there is a tension between these two characters. And the chapter ends with Gimpy saying, "You guys aren't the target of each other's missions," right? And so, this already indicates a couple of things. First of all, Hemlock is not the supportive, kind type. He seems to be a very ice-cold character. And the way Tatsuya Endo writes the relationship between Yor and Hemlock, and the fact that Hemlock will be the one that will be supporting this mission, I have a feeling that the biggest fight will end up being between Hemlock and Yor due to some disagreement that will come out in how they're supposed to handle the mission. Now, it's supposed to be that the poachers are this random crime organization, so if that's the case, I can't imagine that to be the reason for the disagreement that may potentially come out. But there is that one possibility, and although I said that Y's organization may not cross with Garden at this time, there is that one possibility that if Y's is assigned to protect the poachers, then they may come in, and if that happens, then Lloyd may come in as well. I don't think that's the case because this is still, I feel, too early to see that happen. But in any case, you already see that there is some tension that's going to happen between these two characters. And because of some disagreement that goes on, I got a feeling that they're going to fight. And how this gets resolved, it will be interesting to see. But overall, this seems like a relatively straightforward mission. But if Tatsuya Endo is bringing this particular mission out as a way to introduce Garden, you know that it's not going to be situation normal. And so it'll be interesting to see what happens and why such a trivial mission is being used to introduce these characters and how they'll react once they go into the field. But we'll have to wait until the next few chapters to come out. This seems like it's going to be the next long arc, and I am really looking forward to seeing how Yor fares against a much more formidable opponent than she has been encountering up till now. And once chapter 116 comes out, I'll bring out another video and hope you join me at that time. But this is the chapter 115 discussion for Spy Family. If you read it, what'd you think about it? What do you think about these new characters in Garden? Any comments will be greatly appreciated. And until the next mission, happy manga reading, and as always, Jaya, nice day everyone.